Good morning and welcome to Rising. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are glad to have our viewers with us, supporting us as always. Jessica, what are we talking about?
Well, former President Donald Trump said Vice President Kamala Harris, quote, turned black during a combative live interview Wednesday at the National Association of Black Journalists convention. Let's watch.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
Give me
a definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
Define it for me if you
I
would.
just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She is always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe
I
that she
think
is
somebody should look into that too when you ask continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
In another viral moment, Trump again clashed with ABC News correspondent Rachel Scott. Let's watch.
You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country.
Harris reacted to Trump's attacks while addressing members of the historically black sorority Sigma Gamma Rho in Houston.
Donald Trump spoke at the annual meeting of the National Association of Black Journalists. And it was the same old show. The divisiveness and the disrespect. And let me just say, the American people deserve better.
Meanwhile, MSNBC's Joy Reid had a message for the president of the NABJ.
Donald Trump showed up at the convention for exactly 3 reasons. 1, to try to dispel the notion that he's scared to debate a black woman, a presumption one can draw from his refusal to commit to debating VP Harris, who again, for those in the back, is a black and Asian woman.
Trump's VP pick, J.D. Vance, seemingly doubled down on Trump's attacks, saying this at an Arizona rally yesterday.
This week, look up the clip. She went down to Georgia and started talking with a fake Southern accent. I'm serious. Now, what the hell was that all about? Kamala Harris grew up in Canada. They don't talk like that in Vancouver or Quebec or wherever she came from. Doesn't.
So I think it's a bit ridiculous to say that she's only recently claimed her black heritage. She was the president of the Black Students Law Association in the 1980s. She was an Kappa Alpha, AKA sorority, which is the first intercollegiate African-American sorority. We had a chapter at my school that was kind of underground. It was actually really cool. We weren't supposed to have any Greek life at Wells. There was a secret underground Alpha Kappa Alpha chapter. That's a mouthful. But the AKA sorority is huge, and it's a black sorority. She was not hiding her heritage. She was not hiding her race and saying she's only Indian. It's a ridiculous claim.
Yeah, she's biracial. She's black and Indian. I don't know what we're arguing about here. That seems fine. I don't know. I don't really think Trump or Republicans benefit by trying to parse at which point she presented more predominantly as one or the other. Obviously, you can, lean into one side more than the other depending on the people you're around or what. Like, it's not really worth discussing. I will say, I think it was a good thing that Trump went there. I'm glad the association invited him to speak. And for people who think that was, for liberals or progressives who think Trump's behavior there, the things he said were so disqualifying, shouldn't you be happy that the association gave him that opportunity to speak? And if you think it went badly, shouldn't you be excited that he, exposed himself to this community, this professional organization as not worthy of your vote, if you think that's what happened? And yet Joy Reid type people are still gonna be like, it was so wrong to ever extend this invitation, to ever hear from a different perspective. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's like I said yesterday, that him going and arguing and being combative with whoever's asking the questions would be a mistake, did that, and he could say something that makes him look stupid, did that. I genuinely think that he is scrambling, that he is saying increasingly unhinged things.
I don't know about
maybe
that.
Because he's losing ground. What do you think?
I think he fielded that question about the DEI nature of Kamala Harris's selection perfectly fine. He's like, well, what do you mean by that? What are you saying? And he made the person asking the question be a little bit more specific, that do you think she was picked for that position just because of her race and gender? Which point he could have said, well, yes, because we know that she was, because Joe Biden promised to pick his VP based on race and gender. He made that explicit commitment, and that is why he picked her. That's not to say that she isn't qualified or that she's nothing apart from her race and gender, just that race and gender was a significant factor in why she was selected.
But that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to him questioning her race as being black. And him lying and saying she didn't claim her black heritage. Do you think that's him being unhinged because he's scrambling? Because Kamala's gaining ground?
I don't think it's a helpful line of inquiry for Trump to make some. I don't think that's why. Yeah. I mean, it's very quintessentially Trump.
You think that was
why do I think he said
cool, collected Trump?
I'm not inside Trump's head. Trump said. I mean, if you listen, you could hear the same thing I could hear, which is the crowd laughing hysterically. Trump is an entertainer.
Do you think those were laughs that were like, Trump is funny? Those were laughs. I will say that
Trump says some wild stuff to entertain a crowd. That's fundamental to who he is.
Those were not laughs as I'm having a good time, this is very funny. Those were laughs as in I'm laughing at this man because I can't believe he said here and brought this mess and said this crazy thing to all of us. That's the laugh I heard. I mean,
he was asked to discuss. The people asking the questions made an issue about Kamala Harris's race, ethnic identity, and so he got into that because that's what he was asked about.
He was asked about his track record with black journalists.
Right. They said specifically that you and again it was that you how dare you call a journalist who happens to be a black woman a loser or criticize her reporting. Well, we can't. Again, there's no evidence that he criticized those people specifically because they were black or they were women. It was because he didn't like what they had to say.
Well,
he's also criticized journalists who are white men and journalists who are Asian and journalists who are every other type of demographic if they're anti-Trump, which so many of them are.
Well, here's what I'll say, is that two white guys like Donald Trump and J.D. Vance saying what they're saying, running against a black woman, questioning her racial identity.
It's illegal to run against a black woman? They should just give up.
It's not illegal to run against a black woman, but to run against a black woman and make the campaign about whether or not she's black is ridiculous and could cost them the election. And it's making them look very stupid.
They're not making the campaign about that. The campaign is about the issues. It's about her policies. It's about her support for
that's not what we heard.
Environmental policy positions that
J.D.
will
Vance was not making policy
harm the economies in Pennsylvania and Michigan.
Well, I think
That's what the election's about.
even making this statement. He could have said something about policy. He didn't. Kamala
Well, he should.
Harris
He should pivot
could
to
have fought
policy all the
back.
time.
And instead she said, the American people deserve better, which I think was a very good response. We deserve better than this race being made about her race. We deserve a race that is on policy. And that's what Kamala Harris has been talking about.
Who's making about a race? The Harris campaign is holding white only and Asian only and black only affinity group rallies for Harris, or her top supporters are. They're making about race.
Robby,
The progressives are obsessed with race. That's all they care about.
By saying that, you're accusing the Kamala Harris campaign of violating FEC regulations.
Her supporters, her media backers.
It's not her campaign. It's no one affiliated with the official Harris campaign. It's people organizing this among themselves.
The media and liberal, progressive, activist class wants this to be all about race because they're obsessed with race.
No, absolutely not.
They
Donald
are.
Trump questioned whether or not Kamala Harris is actually black. And then J.D. Vance doubled down and talked about it at a rally.
No, what J.D. Vance said is that she was speaking, I haven't heard the clip, I don't know if this is the case, but this is something that political figures do all the time. The code switching, the altering the cadence of your voice. Hillary Clinton used to do this all the time. It's not even controversial to say this. Like she would try to come across as more folksy and more Southern, depending on the audience. There's evidence of that happening all the time. I'm not even saying it's a specifically Democratic thing. Republicans play up their folksiness, etc. in the South. It's a common political tactic. It's not at all unique to her. What he was saying is that he was accusing her of doing that same thing.
Yeah, I've seen
That's not a ridiculous. That's not a racial.
happen.
That's not a ridiculous. We know that happens.
Right, and if you ask any black person about code switching, they'll say, of course we do that. And if Kamala Harris gets in front of a crowd of black people and feels comfortable talking how she did with the people she grew up with, that's fine. When I go back to New York and I talk with a New York accent and I'm around my family, and it's a different way of talking than I had to talk at Brown University to be accepted.
When I'm back in the Midwest, I sound a little bit more Midwestern after a week.
That's what people have to do. Some people have to code switch all day long at work all day. And so seeing Kamala Harris code switch, it's very different from seeing someone like Hillary Clinton, who's never had to be anyone other than elitist who went to Yale, code switch and try and act folksy. So Kamala
our political
Harris,
figures, all of them, are trying to manufacture.
It's fake when some people do it, I'll give you that. I don't think
fake when they all
Kamala
do
Harris was being fake. And I think questioning her heritage and her background and making that a part of what you're running on is a huge mistake, especially among black voters and voters in the South.
Okay, I think the race should have nothing to do with race. The campaign needs to have nothing to do
That
with
would
race.
be nice, but it's been made about race by Donald Trump. Right now, that's
do not
why we're
think it's been
talking
made
about
about race
It's
by
because
Donald
of what
Trump.
he said, because he questioned her race. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this block. We wouldn't even be talking about this.
Okay. More Rising right after this.